Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I refer to my register of interests. After a decade of austerity and in response to rising living costs, inflation and debt, our communities needed targeted economic support to ease the pressure. However, that hasn't been forthcoming. Instead, workers will be asked to bear the burden of paying for the economic crisis through a rise in national insurance from next April and through local authorities being forced by this Conservative government to increase council tax to pay for vital local services, including social care. Paul Johnson of the IFS said the outlook for living standards was actually awful, with high inflation, rising taxes, poor growth, keeping living standards virtually stagnant for another half a decade. It's a matter of priorities. Tax hikes for workers, tax cuts for banks. It's a Conservative Party helping their friends in the city at our communities and our public services' expense. Rising inflation will exacerbate the situation. Economists have stated that inflation will average at 4% and could go as high as 6%. So with that in mind, public sector workers who deliver important public services and who are taxpayers urgently need answers on what the Spending Review's pay announcement actually means in practice. After 11 years of sustained pay freezes and in effect pay cuts, the public sector, the government could have committed to a real-term pay increase for public sector workers to address rising inflation and cost of living. The announcement on public sector pay is a con. By failing to commit to a real-term increase and asserting that it doesn't want to prejudge independent pay review processes, the government's announcement just loses all legitimacy. This government has a track record of completely ignoring pay review body recommendations. Just look at the prison officers' situation. Last year's prison service pay review recommendations included a £3,000 pay rise for Band 3 officers on the new contracts. Government rejected experts' advice, stating it was unaffordable. And that leads to the other issue, that the government does provide indicative advice on the overall remit of pay review bodies' recommendations. It's all just smoke and mirrors, and it's not a case of prejudging, as nothing is stopping the government from advising that a real terms increase for public sector workers is appropriate. We also need to hear more from the government on civil service pay, as the hundreds of thousands of civil servants don't have a pay review body and rely on the Treasury to determine a pay rise. But as we all know, when it comes to a spending review, the devil is always in the detail. And in this case, the autumn spending review confirms cuts of 5% against day-to-day central department budgets in 24-25. PCS Trade Union are concerned that the spending review outlined that the government want to cut non-frontline civil service headcount to 2019-2020 levels by 2024-25 and state that this could mean around 32,000 jobs being cut. So will the Minister confirm in their closing remarks how many civil service jobs are expected to be cut as departments are forced to make 5% savings, and whether the cut to running costs and jobs will in part be used to cover any public sector pay increase? Cutting the civil servants who work, live and spend in our communities, such as those in Luton South who work for the DWP, the Court Service, the Border Force, will hamper any meaningful strategy to improve economic growth and living standards. The government needs to change its priorities and root the recovery in our communities and workers' prosperity. And uplifting public sector workers' living standards will have a positive knock-on benefit, contributing to the distribution of growth across all our communities and the country. It's time to change tack, back our public sector workers, to back our economic recovery.